Today I want to talk about the 4 most common unschooling mistakes. Maybe they're just going to be like signposts for you as you're walking along this path to let you know that this might be a little bit of a stumbling area. So hopefully they're helpful. Number 1 is hearing about unschooling, maybe seeing some examples of it around the place and going, yeah, that's what I want. And then diving in without the scuba gear. The scuba gear, when it comes to unschooling, is beginning to untangle the conditioning that comes from a lifetime of being in a school fixated culture. So definitely dive in. Definitely don't feel like you have to be totally healed in order to do unschooling. Nope. But you do, on some level, have to be open and prepared for this idea that you got quite a lot of baggage, quite a lot of shaping that is going to influence your day-to-day experience with the kids. You don't have to be all healed and all deconditioned, but you definitely have to have a willingness and an expectation that all this inner stuff is gonna bubble up. Hi! Are you alright?
Yeah! Salad!
What are these?
Balloons!
Cool. Did they spell something?
No.
Cool. They're really fun. They look like guns. They look really fun.
Can I help you? Or are you filming?
I'm just filming. Love you. Okay, bye.
Amy, goodbye.
Yeah.
Oh, she's over.
Okay, can you pop that door? Love you. So yeah, that's mistake number 1. Diving in without beginning the deconditioning. It's like a wrap. Okay, number 2, most common unschooling mistake. So these come from either mistakes I have made or mistakes or just things that seem to come up fairly constantly with the clients that I work with, the people that I work with. So number 2 is still expecting your children to meet the milestones that traditional schooling has set for them. So yep, you go, we're gonna embrace learning with trust and connection and relationship. But then when they're not reading by age 5 to 7, having a huge freak out because you think, what? It must all be going wrong. The reality is that all of those milestones that school children are meeting, they're meeting them not because they would naturally do so, but because the school has prioritized those milestones for those children. It's all back to front. So once you take away the kind of like pathway to those milestones, there's no reason that your children would meet them if they're not naturally ready for them. So what you see in unschooling homes is that milestones that are not even on the curriculum are met and are amazing and astonishing and mind-blowing, but then other ones that are absolutely taken for granted across the board aren't met for many years sometimes after the milestone, the arbitrary milestone says a child should meet them. Does that make sense? So like reading and writing is a really good one. Actually, a vast majority of unschooling kids are still totally within their imagination, still totally immersed in a world of play. They've got no reason to sit down and start writing and reading. Well, some kids do, and if they're motivated then they do it. But that kind of natural motivation for communicating through the written word doesn't click in for a lot of children until way later. And so the parents' role is to really shake down all those arbitrary milestones they have in their mind, put them aside, and then just embrace what their kid is joyfully interested in and joyfully doing. Which brings me to the 3rd most common unschooling mistake that people make. And this is not really bringing an intention to your role as an unschooling parent. So I think some people might consider that once they begin unschooling, they're just like, off you jolly well go, kids, have fun. And it's really not like that. It's really not like that at all. And the invitation here is for you to consider what your role is. I'm gonna float some things out there, but I'm not telling you what your role is. But I would like to invite you to consider a new metaphor for what it is you're doing with your kids. You're not their teacher anymore, but you're not a no one to them. What is a new metaphor that can represent who you are to your kids now? I love the idea that in a way I'm kind of a coach for my children. I have conversations with them about what it is they're passionate about right now. Honestly, the sounds out there are ridiculous. What is happening? Just some casual banging around. Yes, I invite you to consider a new metaphor. Oh yeah, so I consider myself somewhat of a coach. I am there to have conversations with my kids about what it is they're interested in at the moment, to facilitate their learning around that, open some doors, to check in if they have got goals that they would like to meet. Some people might choose a metaphor of gardener, that your role as an unschooling parent is now to kind of water the garden and nourish it, and to give space to bloom. Other things that might float to the top for you are things like support crew. So looking at what it is your kid is interested in and helping them find ways for that interest to grow and deepen. And I would say also a real cool invitation for a new role for you is as fellow traveler. So instead of it being like, yes, my children are unschooling or my children are life learning, it's this idea that we are all in our family life learning together. So what does it mean for you to embody some of those values that you hope your children will be gathering? Are you curious about stuff? Do you have hobbies and passions? Are you constantly learning and open and excited about life? And do you try new things and take up opportunities? What does it mean for you to be a fellow traveler alongside your child? So yeah, that's the third mistake. It's so negative talking about mistakes. I don't even know why. But yeah, that's kind of the third thing that I see people trip up on, is not really bringing intention to their new role as an unschooling parent, and instead just being like, well, see you later. See you at 5 o'clock. Okay, and the fourth one, this one is also really common, and this one is expecting your child to immediately sink in to their own life learning role, when actually they have to do their whole own deschooling process. So this is for kids who have been in school especially. So there's an experiment that took place. Sorry if you've heard this, it's pulled out all of the time, but that's because it's a very striking experiment. It was by a guy called Milgram, and he took random people off the street who signed up to be research participants, and he put them in a simulation prison, and he said, you are prisoners, you are wardens, and within 24 hours they had absolutely embodied their roles, to the extent where, with no invitation or request from the experiment itself, the prison wardens were punishing the prisoners and just making up punishments, and basically treating them horribly. And the prisoners themselves were acting like, you know, at any point they could have been like, hey man, this is just an experiment, get out of my face. But they had really quickly just turned into really vulnerable, powerless prisoners. I think about that experiment a lot. Obviously lots of people do, because people pull this out all of the time, but it's really relevant here, because if your child has spent any time in the institution of school, they have learned that they are passive receivers of their own learning, and it is gonna take a long time, Some people think it's a month for every year of their schooling. I would say it's possibly longer, because that's some serious shaping. But they've spent a good chunk of time being these kind of passive brains to be filled. And it's gonna take a while for them to kind of unfold and grow in confidence and grow in their own agency as active learners. And so there's gonna be a period of time, if your kids have been in school, where you're gonna just have to hang in there. It's gonna look like they're not learning or they don't want to learn. It's gonna probably look like that. You just hang in there, keep feeding their joy, follow the spark in their eyes, and you will come through it both. And there'll be so much empowerment and agency and curiosity again. You will get there, just hang in there. So those are the 4 probably biggest stumbling blocks I see for people when they are beginning this unschooling journey. I hope that was helpful. If it was helpful, give me a thumbs up, share a little comment, maybe share it with a friend who you think might be having a tough time. I'd also love to invite you onto my upcoming course, Disco. It's a 5-week unschooling course for people either thinking about unschooling or wanting some more inspiration, some more encouragement. One of the things I've discovered about living a radical life is that it is so important to get regular doses of support and inspiration. It can go a long, long way. Just a little bit of alignment and attunement can really bring a lot more ease and joy and connection that can really pay off for many years in the future. So if you're feeling like you need that, please check out the link below. I would love to welcome you onto my course throughout July. Much love to you. Thank you so much for watching. I'd love to hear from you in the comments as ever. Take care.